Hello, I'm Char, and I am here today with
Laura, who's me.
we're going to be spending the next 30 minutes sharing what we want to show you at the intersection of ideas and experiences. We realize that despite our very different backgrounds, locations, and experiences, we have a lot of commonalities we didn't expect. So we thought that you might have some as well, and we'd like to share ours with you. How are you today, Laura? And I know we're going to be talking about beautiful things we'd like to share. So what have you been thinking about?
Okay, first of all, it's a beautiful day here in Cape Town. So I'm just going to put that out there to set the context and the mood. I was thinking about a place that I really love in Cape Town. It's not the flashiest, it's not the brand new stadium, it's not any of those things. It's a little neighborhood up on the side of the mountain. At the sort of entrance to it is a place called Atlas Trading. And the Atlas Trading store has been there since the 40s. And it hasn't changed. I go there because it's the only place I can get Kashmiri chili powder and kala namak black salt and legumes and soap and cherries and everything. It's a proper trading store run by some elderly ladies who sit there and chat, and they will include you in their conversations as you go through the store and as you pay for your goods. And there's an elderly lady who sits by the door selling homemade Indian food because it's run by some Indian ladies. So it's amazing. And it smells amazing. And then you go up the steep street and you go into an area called the Bokaap, which translates as Upper Cape rather. And it's got cobbled streets and all these colorful little houses, and everybody lives in there for generations and generations. They wanted to gentrify it a while ago, and there was so much protest that they changed it into a heritage site instead. It's the most lovely place. Everybody's super friendly. Everybody knows everybody else in there. And there's a particular memory that I have, an image that's never left my mind. I was driving through for some reason. I was going somewhere, and I passed by this tiny little stone church. And there was this incredibly beautiful young bride standing outside. And the wind was blowing, and she was looking over her shoulder at a little flower girl, this beautiful little girl in this poofy little dress, and her veil was blowing across her face. And it was just such a beautiful image. I've never forgotten it. And that's what the Bokaap is for me. It's nostalgia, it's authenticity, it's just everyday life, the beauty of everyday life, and how beautiful community and connection and just living your daily life in simplicity can be.
I love that you're sharing that memory of the colors and the smells and the sounds that really, I think, help us see connections to places, because it's not just the building itself, although the site of the building or the houses or the streets certainly bring back good memories or a sense of community. But I do think it's the sounds of the community and the smells of the community and the individuals that live there in their kind of everyday life. You know, the story you shared of the woman who sits near the door of the Atlas trading market selling her homemade Indian food, and the smells there, and the image of the bride in the doorway in the wind, like that really helps me build a sense of what that community might feel like. So you've thrown down a pretty high bar here. So let me describe a community near me that has this similar cultural traditions and smells and sounds and like people in space. So where I live in Cleveland, Ohio, is also on a shoreline. We're not on an ocean shoreline, we're on a lake shoreline, but Lake Erie looks like an ocean if you're standing on the shore. You can't see the other side. And so our community was a very industrial place. Cleveland has steel mills and automobile manufacturing, a lot of industry, and it's a port city, very much like Cape Town is a port city. And so we have immigrants who have come here at various points in the history of Cleveland to work in those industrial settings. And so the one neighborhood, as you were describing, your neighborhood on the hill, the neighborhood on the hill that comes to my mind when I think about that is Little Italy. So Little Italy is on Murray Hill, and it runs along the edge of Lakeside Cemetery, which is a massive cemetery in Cleveland, where some of the wealthiest people in the Cleveland history are buried in these massive tombs with massive monuments. All of those tombs and all those monuments required stone workers and master stone workers. So the Italian immigrants who came to the Cleveland area were also working as stone workers in the cemetery, creating all of these spaces. So Little Italy runs up the hill, runs up Murray Hill, and they're very tightly packed houses, and then very tightly packed restaurants and bakeries as you go up the hill, with brightly colored, Italian flags and signs and advertisements for just the best pastries. So if you think about pastry, like I think about pastry, I think about like light flaky dough wrapped around like yummy fillings. So when I think about Little Italy and the things to do there, some of the bakeries that are kind of the historic places. See, I'm trying to think of a good one to share with you. All of them have like the best little Italian cookies to eat. So if you're thinking about, I don't know if Italian food, what Italian food is like in Cape Town, but Corbo's is probably the like bakery in Little Italy. And if you go to Corbo's, they have wedding cakes in the window with these very elaborate wedding cakes. And then they have all of their little pastries for sampling that you can see in a glass case as you walk by. So there's no like walking past it on the street, like, because you are seeing immediately like these trays of cannolis. Like cannolis are tubes of light fluffy pastry with like this ricotta cheese filling with little chocolate chips like all over them, which are really delicious. And they have the Italian festival there every summer where they string lights across the streets and have statues outside all of the churches and flowers and street carts selling Italian sausage sandwiches and delicious pizza slices and bowls of pasta, and the whole street is blocked off and everyone is there like with music playing and the lights. So when I think about like interesting places in our city, Cleveland is very kind of community based. So there's Little Italy, there's Chinatown, there was Irish Bend along the edge of the Cuyahoga River. I grew up in Parma, a suburb of Cleveland, and it was all Eastern European. So there's all Eastern Orthodox churches, many of them down the street. So my view growing up were the onion dome little churches, interspersed with local bars and bowling alleys and small local restaurants. Like that was our community. Most of my friends spoke Latvian and Serbian and Polish, and their families were very recent first generation, second generation families. So when I think about community, that's what I see in my like area, is all these ethnic regional pieces where families still live, which is very different. And now there's this big Hispanic neighborhood around the West Side Market in downtown Cleveland that has great Hispanic restaurants and wonderful Hispanic food that's like the most current immigrants and people coming to our city. So it's always changing, which I think is really interesting.
Sure, I've built up these incredibly magical mental images, and wow, it's I want to visit all these places and see all these things in the real life. But I have, you've really provided me with a beautiful mental image of Little Italy. I wish you could see what's in my brain. I hope it's accurate.
Talk to me about the dancers that you tell me about, Laura, that I've done some looking on, because they're so unique. You know, we don't have something like that. We have, you know, in New Orleans, when I was showing you the images of my recent trip to New Orleans, I talked a little bit about Second Line, that there's music and celebration that occurs like after funeral processions or at weddings, like these very joyous things. We don't have something similar to that here in Cleveland. So I'm really interested in the dancers that you've been telling me about.
So I was talking about the Cape Minstrels. So I think that's what you're asking about.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm talking about.
The footage I've seen of these funeral processions is almost exactly matched to that. It's a very happy, they perform a lot around New Year and end of the year kind of things. But they're always dressed in these brightly colored costumes. And there's instruments and dancing, and not everybody's dancing and not everybody has an instrument, but the people who aren't dancing are kind of shuffling along.
I have.
Did you ever? Did
I
you ever
did.
see the Madiba shuffle?
And they're
Nelson
wearing
Mandela's Madiba shuffle.
like
Yeah.
brightly colored costumes and
Yes.
masks and feathers and umbrellas. And it looks so much, Laura, like the Second Line parades at
Yes.
around that same carnival time right before Lent in New Orleans. Very similar cultures. It's so interesting.
It gave me that immediate, when I saw it, I was immediately said to my husband, you know, that reminds me of the Cape Minstrels, because but the great thing is that it's we have all these different communities, right? But a lot of the minstrels actually are affiliated with that area or come from that area as well. That I was telling you about, but it's so inclusive, you know, that you can basically join in if you feel that way inclined, and everybody will just welcome you. That is what I do love about Cape Town, is you can join in with any community at any event and you will be welcomed. I was telling you a while ago about the wedding.
Yes.
I must just tell that story, because that is
You
really
really
a thing of
need to
beauty.
tell that story about the wedding, because I think that really demonstrated like that bringing people together in your culture. Absolutely.
So a young couple went to Home Affairs, which is I expect everybody to understand Home Affairs, to get married. They just wanted to get married. They just wanted to get married legally married in court, but they were outside Home Affairs to go and change their surnames and everything, but they weren't actually married yet. So they're going to go to court, go to Home Affairs, apply for the new IDs, and start their new life together. They did not have a big wedding planned or anything like that. They also thought they could just use clerks as witnesses. However, he was a little bit dressed up and she was wearing a white dress and a veil. And they arrived and they didn't know that there was a strike going on. And they arrived and found themselves in the middle of a strike. But when the strikers realized what they were doing there, they changed their strike into a wedding celebration. They found a master of ceremonies or a justice of the peace or somebody who was willing to marry them. And they got married right there in the middle of the strikers, and the strikers made a big circle around them and changed it into a massive celebration, dancing and singing and celebrating with them. And I saw a video of it. I wish I could find it again. I will look for it. But it's the most beautiful thing, because they're so happy and they're surrounded by all these people that they've never met, who are just totally celebrating everything you should be celebrating at a wedding. And the strike changed into an absolutely joyous celebration and such an amazing event. And I'm pretty sure they'll never forget their wedding.
No, I can't imagine that they would. Yeah, I love that idea that the strikers recognized that this was this big thing for them, and it became a joyous celebration in the midst
And they
of this. We're angrily protesting what is going on for us, but we're willing to set that aside to joyfully celebrate what's going to go on for you. Like, what a
but
great
they
message.
that is the Cape Town spirit people talk about. People will, it's the most amazing. I mean, they're the most amazing people in Cape Town. I know I'm biased, but I remember breaking down in the middle of the day in a dodgy neighborhood, industrial area, and feeling very, very uncomfortable. It was just my mom and I. And her car blew like a gasket or something. She and I were going to a wholesaler, so we had to go through the industrial area. And a car stopped behind us with some men in it, and we were very, very nervous. And at that moment, across 4 lanes of traffic going in the other direction, a man stopped his car, ran across, and said, "You ladies look like you need a hand. Stay in the car, keep your windows rolled up and your car's locked. Have you got somebody coming?" And we said, "Yes, we're waiting for the tow truck." And he said, "Well, in that case, I'm going to sit and wait with you, so that you'll be safe."
Wow.
And this was all these stories I tell, it's all mixtures of cultures and ethnicities and backgrounds and contexts, and yet everybody acts like you're part of a community, no matter what community it is, and no matter where you come from. As long as you can embrace everybody with, you're all South Africans, and that's what's so amazing, and that's what makes me feel hopeful. Despite the problems that we have, it's a beautiful place to be.
I see that same feeling of community when people are in need around us. I live in a western suburb of Cleveland. It's very suburban. And when people are in need here, whether it's through the church or through the community resource center, through Facebook posting, like, their needs are met. Like, people are very generous when it is brought to your attention that there is a family who has had a tragedy that was unexpected, or an illness that they weren't anticipating, or something's happened in their home. There's such a willingness to bring food, bring supplies, offer shelter, offer comfort. When we talk about beautiful things, I think reminding ourselves occasionally that as a group, we do actually care about each other, and like finding those commonalities again, putting aside what you thought were significant differences and just recognizing, like, hey, we're all people in this space together, is so important. One of the things for me that has always built community has been music. I'm a very music-oriented person. I play instruments. I enjoy listening to a lot of different kinds of music. And so a different community that I would want to show you if you were to come here to Cleveland, I'd want to take you to Severance Hall. It is the home of the Cleveland Symphony Orchestra. And when you walk into Severance Hall, it has this massive domed, like, shell ceiling that's painted silver and white with like crystal chandeliers that looks like waves almost coming across the ceiling. And then this beautiful stage with a massive pipe organ in the back. And when you sit and listen to the orchestra playing there, because of the acoustics in Severance Hall, the music doesn't just come at you from the front. The music comes at you from all around. And so you're actually like in the musical experience there when you're listening to the orchestra. And I had a chance to take my cousin to Severance Hall to hear an orchestra concert during the Christmas holidays here. And she'd never been there before, even though she's a very musical person. and is my age. So, someone in your 50s who'd not ever been to Severance Hall. And it was such a delight to take her there for the first time and to see her expression as she saw the inside of the space. But then when the orchestra started to play, her gasp of, oh my goodness, listening to that music was so much fun to have that experience. And the orchestra makes an effort, because it's endowed, to make music accessible to everyone. It's not just for the people who can afford to come to an expensive concert. They work hard to have school programs and family programs and free public concerts, and make sure that that level of beautiful music performance is accessible to all people, which I think is also an important part of like our community here, that it's not something that's just for a select group. I think that's so important.
You actually, you're talking about that, actually, you gave me goosebumps. You made me think of our city hall, where we have the Cape Town Philharmonic as well. And I remember when we were in high school, we somehow, our choir master he believed that he was destined for greater things, I think. Anyway, we ended up doing Hallelujah from Handel's Messiah in City Hall.
Oh,
With a
wow.
choir. And it was probably the single most incredible experience of my high school life. It's right up there with like my wedding day as the most magical memory, because I think I probably it's beautiful old building. It's a real testament to architecture, and it's got the massive organ in the back and the acoustics, and they also try to keep it accessible as far as possible, and it's the most amazing place to be as an audience member as well. It's magical every single time I go, and I mean, it's 20 minutes away, so I've been there a lot, and it never ceases, it never stops being incredible and magical. Even if I'm there for some boring reason, it is City Hall after all. They also do other things.
I think that's interesting that City Hall has a concert venue in it. The Cleveland City Hall is beautiful, but it is not a concert venue. That's really fascinating to have that music space within a decision space. Maybe we should think more about that, because music is so uniting, and that feeling you have when you are creating and participating in music together really makes a difference in how we find commonalities for ourselves, I think. So to have like a music space in a space which is very political, that we don't associate sometimes with commonalities and coming together, maybe we're missing on that here in the US, I think.
It actually never occurred to me that there were places that didn't have that kind of setup. But I suspect they were going for efficiency when it was built way back when, in the 17th century or whenever it was. Yes. I don't know, it was the 17th or 18th century. It was really longer.
We've talked before about how pizza can be unifying. And, that pizza can bring people together, and that there's regional pizza differences, but ultimately it's still pizza. And like sharing the pizza as an analogy for like coming together to share other things. I think our conversation today around sharing beautiful things, these cultural traditions and these building spaces and the music, so many similarities to things that we both have in very different cities and very different environments, but how easily our conversations about those things have brought us together as friends. And realizing that the food pieces and the music and the unique communities that we see value in are also similar to communities in our own spaces. I think that if we're really looking at building deeper friendships or helping to grow relationships across these what appear are very different spaces, that's a good reminder of how to start. Like, how engaging is it to start our conversation with, share something beautiful about where you live with me, and where that goes in a conversation, I think is really important. I don't know, do you have any thoughts on that?
I think also just showing this, it inspires us to keep it going, to perpetuate it. It inspires us to preserve the beauty. And that's, I mean, in community, in connections, you were talking about how people help each other. I've seen that as well. Even people who are not from our community will come together just to help them. I think of a gentleman who sells ice cream door to door. We have a lot of people like that on bicycles. His bicycle broke. Our community, because he's been serving our community for so many years, our community came together, bought him stock, bought him a new bicycle with a new little refrigerator compartment, and had it outfitted and brought him new clothes and the whole thing, just to support his business.
Because he's so important to your community. I mean, it sounds like he's a necessary part of your community.
He is a part of this. And then I think that just recognizing that kind of beauty, and the beauty in connection, and the beauty in community, I think that helps us to just remind us. It helps to remind us not only what we see, but what we want to see and what we want to show others, which is what this is actually about. It's what things that I want to make, I want to preserve, I want to perpetuate, I want to pay forward, so that I have something that I want to show you.
Yeah, I think that's so important. That idea that I want to help preserve, the advocating for local businesses and going and being a customer in the local business and supporting those local businesses, and because they're part of your community. Like, we have a local restaurant here called Las Cas. It's a local Mexican restaurant. The family actually lives in my neighborhood. And everybody talks about Las Cas, and we go to Las Cas, and because it's part of our community, like, you look forward to seeing them every week when we go for a meal, and they're having their voices in our community is really important. It's like, hey, here's a new culture, here's some new experiences, here's some new perspectives that are strengthening our community conversation, not diluting the community conversation.
Yes.
Seeing that as having these diverse music traditions and cultural traditions and food traditions actually strengthens your community rather than pulling it apart. And I think that's why it's so important to keep talking about that, so that when you do come, I can show you those things. Like, here, this is our local place. This is the local things that I love and enjoy, because I'm advocating to protect and maintain them.
Yes, that's so. I love your story of the little local restaurant, because to me, there's always the story of the local restaurant where everybody gets together, and that's just, we have markets in our community where everybody gets together. It sounds we have market day we have a very strong community sense. So we had our 50th anniversary recently of the neighborhood, which sounds really strange. It was strange to me at first as well. But then there's the senior center has a market, and everybody goes and supports it. And we have our neighborhood watch, and they have events, fundraising events, and everybody goes. So it's really nice to do that within your community, and it's really nice when you can do it across communities as well.
I think so too. And that is the beauty. There's been a lot of articles about kind of the flattening of communities, because you have global chains and regional chains that are restaurants and stores. coming in, which are certainly employing everyone. But the beauty of your community are those little places. It is the woman that you look forward to seeing at Atlas Market because she sells delicious Indian food, and it is the servers and the staff at our local restaurant who recognize us. And I know the meal that I'm getting there is unique. It's not something that I'm going to get anywhere else. And like, why that's so much fun. When I go on vacation to Charleston, South Carolina, which is also a very unique community with very different cultural heritages that are intersecting there and a history, but it's still those local restaurants, the local shops, the local stories, the gullah traditions of the island enslaved people and how those have been carried forward into the modern culture there, and people who are advocating to keep those stories and those cultures relevant and not eliminated by like the spread of kind of flattening. I think that's why I keep going to those places, because I'm interested in hearing, what are your local stories? What are your local cultures? What is the food that's unique here, or the music that's unique here? I have a whole playlist of Dominican music now from when we go on vacation, the Dominican Republic, because it's interesting to hear that music and to read their local folk tales and to hear those faces. So, I think that's what's building our community. That's where the beauty is in searching those things out when you go to a new place.
Actually, we moved into this neighborhood about 5 years ago, 2017. That's about 6 years ago now. And we found a place that we had been to once or twice before because it wasn't that far. But we've gotten to know Charmaine, who's been there since I can remember, and she always takes us straight to our table. It's called Mama's Kitchen. And she takes us straight to our table, and she knows what we want to drink, and she knows what we're going to eat. And there's an amazing comfort in that. But I actually took one of my friends there, a whole bunch of friends actually, for a birthday party I threw for my mom. And we just took everybody we knew. And they all understood, they all got it. And they all go there now. So I don't think that these places I think that everybody who's used to going to, I don't know, Pizza Hut and Burger King, I think they go to a place like that and they feel at home. And I think that these places will survive because of that. And
it's because you're making connections and you've introduced your friends so that they now feel connected there as well.
Yes. And they have the nerve to go without me. But yes, they've all gotten to know Charmaine as well. They all know her by name. They know Tristan, who's also a server, but has been, we've got to the point where we chat about our families and our lives.
Yes, our local restaurant, Las Cas, we know all of them. They know what we want to eat. You feel like family when you're there. They catered my daughter's graduation party. We asked her what she wanted for when she graduated from high school. It was Las Cas was going to cater the graduation party with like literally barrels full of nacho chips and and they sent her special favorite thing for her. She wasn't going to have to eat the pans of everybody else's. She had her to-go container of her favorite thing that she liked. And, I think it's that the beauty in your community is that connections and each other's names. And when one of the managers, Manny there, when his family came from Mexico to stay here and we're starting in the public school system as English learners in a public school system, being able to help them navigate that, because we knew them from the restaurant, and he knew our family, and he talked about his family, and he shared that, he was concerned about his son and starting to school and what he should be doing. And to be able to like make that jump from these are our restaurant friends and our restaurant family to you live in my community and I have some experience that might help you. Let me help you and your son to get the resources that you need and be successful here. I think that's a kind of to sum up what we've been talking about beauty, like that's what it comes down to. It's you have these relationships, you see the beauty in the things around you, you make these connections with other people, and then because of that, when they're in need, you have the resources or the connection that you can be there. And the rest of the time, just the buildings and the food and the music kind of feed you and are what help you stay positive when you're looking at some really challenging things in front of you sometimes. And maybe that's my takeaway from our talk today, Laura, as we wrap up. What about you?
I think that my main takeaway is that we started talking about, we wanted to talk about beautiful things, and we both ended up with connections and communities and memories of connections that we've made, relationships that we have, and across contexts and across, it's very much what we have. You and I have different contexts, and we have these points of intersection, and we have these points of intersection with other people. And I think that's very telling, because we think of beauty that we have around us, and that's what we get. That's what it comes down to. It comes down to the connection, the community, and the sense of belonging.
Absolutely. Well, we know that there's so much more to see than what we shared today. And I am sure that we will have sparked some ideas and conversations. We'd love for you to show us what you see, or use our conversation today as opportunities to share what you see with others. We're so glad that you joined us.